Welcome to chapter 22. We're getting close. Let's see what happens now. After Captain Clark talked to him, Charbonneau changed his mind. He decided that we would finish the journey since there would be no pay for him unless we did. Also, the captain told him to buy me a horse, a good horse, so I would not have to walk all the time. Charbonneau had a good one, but like all the men, he thought that women and children should walk. The canoes buried and the supplies packed on the saddles, we left my brother, Chief Black Gun. He had told us little about the country ahead and the big river and the great lake that smelled because he didn't know very much about it. He had piled up pebbles on the ground and drawn things in the dust, but these were not much help to the captains. On the second day of our journey, Captain Clark came upon an old man who belonged to the Shoshone tribe. His name was Okay, I'm going to try to say this. It's a very big, long word. Petalasharugalahat. 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 Or spotted horse. And I translated what he had to say about the country to the west. That night, the captain wrote for a long time in his journal. Then he read me part of what he had written, I guess to make sure that I really understood what was before us in the many days to come. The old man told me, he said, that for the first 7 days we climb over steep and rocky mountains where we will find no game to kill, nor anything but roots to eat. So, boys and girls, game means animals to kill and eat. So, like deer, hunters go hunting after deer or rabbits or squirrels or whatever they can find, pheasants, turkeys, anything that you can find to eat, even bear, then provides them food. Because guess what? There's no stores on the Lewis and Clark Trail. There's nowhere for anybody to buy food. You have to just kill it or find it, period. So if there's no game, that means there's no food. So the man said, we'll find no game to kill, nor anything but roots to eat. The Indians are called broken moccasins. They live like bears among the rocks and feed on roots and berries and the flesh of horses that they can steal from anyone who passes by. Captain Clark watched me as he read from the journal. We were sitting in the firelight, so I was careful to see that my face did not change. So as Sacagawea is listening to all of this, she's careful to make sure her face doesn't go or anything like that. She wants her face to remain completely impassive. No expression. Why do you think she did that? He read on. The next part of the journey is through sandy desert, where the feet of our horses will give out. The pools of water which exist here in the spring will be dried up, and we will perish of thirst. That means we'll be so thirsty that we'll die. He paused to let me say something. I was silent. My face did not change. The old man said that if we do live, we will still be far from the sea. The sea you call a lake, where there's a lot of water which no one can drink. His advice was for us to go no farther, to wait until spring, when he would be glad to be our guide along to the big sea. Captain Clark closed his journal. He put wood on the fire and stood looking down at me. He waited for a sign that I was frightened by what he had read. But my face did not change. It sounds no worse than what we have already been through, I told him. It's a different country, but we have had bears, snakes, cactus, floods, storms, hunger, a mad beaver, a crazy buffalo, and more. At the sound of my voice, Charbonneau, who had been sleeping, woke up. Captain Clark waited, looking down at me. He seemed unsure of how I felt. I grew suspicious. I had helped him reach the Shoshone camp, helped him make friends with my brother, and helped him buy the horses that we needed badly. But after all this, was I no longer wanted? Were Miko and I a burden now? An extra mouth to feed? A baby to worry about? Were we to be only a big trouble? You are telling me all this just to frighten me, I said, raising my voice. The old man made it up. He told you lies. Captain Clark shook his head, as though he faced a rebellious child. That's not even half of what he told me, as you well know. Do you want to hear it again? I did not answer. I jumped to my feet and I ran into the tent. I gathered up my blankets and all of my things. It was not a long walk back to the Shoshone camp, to my brother and Running Deer. Captain Clark was standing at the door of the tent, barring my way. I pushed past him. As I did so, the cradle board struck him a blow on the chest, to which he replied with a loud groan. Suddenly, the next moment, he had me in his arms. He took the blankets and the things I had packed and went into the tent with them. Over his shoulder, he called back, "You can go with us, Janie." The descriptions of the land beyond the mountain that the old man Spotted Horse gave us were not half right, not even close to what we found. We never came to the land where there were pools of water, and these only in the spring. We found water everywhere. Springs bubbling into rivulets, rivulets into brooks, brooks into streams, streams into rivers. And all this great flood of water rushing down the mountains to the enormous water that Captain Clark called the sea and the Shoshone called the big lake that stinks. One day we came to a flathead village. We were given a haunch of deer meat. And Charbonneau was happy. He even found another wife. She was a pretty girl. She was the chieftain's daughter. She was my age. Her name was Alone in the Clouds. For a wedding gift, he gave her father one of our horses. Fortunately for me, I did not have to put up with her on our way to the sea, because she refused to go with him. Instead, she decided to wait until he came back. Now, boys and girls, a long time ago, the Native Americans had lots of wives. So that was normal. It was normal for a man to have more than one wife. Okay? We don't do that anymore. From the Flathead village, we rode into the worst country we had ever seen. So bad that it took us 10 long days and long nights to get through it. The ravines were narrow and strewn with fallen trees and slides of sharp rock that cut the horses' feet. One of the horses rolled down a bank and smashed the small desk that Captain Lewis used to write upon. And the weather was bad. Every day it snowed or rained. Our clothes never dried out. We were close to freezing even though we built fires. Worse yet, we found no game. About that, the man was right. No antelope or deer, and the buffalo herds were far behind us. We starved, and the horses starved. We had to eat 20 fat candles that Captain Lewis had stored away. Candles. Oh, they had to eat candles. Before we got through the mountains, Captain Lewis put his desk together. He had counted 8 kinds of pine trees as we went along. He sat down with the desk in his lap and put their names down in his book. We came out into open country. A river of white churning water, the same river we had followed in the mountains, wound through it. It was called the Laksa, which meant rough water. Captain Clark and 6 hunters went on ahead. They happened upon a stray horse, which they killed. Half the meat they left for us. I had to eat it or see the baby starve. She didn't like to eat horse meat because she loved horses so much, but if she didn't eat it, her baby would die because she needed to be able to feed him. A day later, we came upon a large village of the Nez Perce, the ones whose noses were pierced by shells. So they would put piercings in their nose, which we still do today, don't we? Yeah, lots of people have nose piercings. When I was a child, I heard that they were friendly people, and this was proven to be right. They gave us dried salmon, and their chieftain, Twisted Hair, smoked a peace pipe with Captain Lewis and Captain Clark. I was no help with the talk that went on between them. I had never heard Nez Perce before, so Drouillet made his signs, and they became good friends without words. Charbonneau was friendly too. Not with Chief Twisted Hair, but with the women. They were the prettiest women I had ever seen, with their glossy black hair and big eyes. Most of our men were sick with cramps, but Captain Lewis put them to work anyway. I think they're sick from not eating good, healthy food, so it makes their tummies hurt and gives them crampy tummies. Since the Nez Perce were going up and down the river in canoes, he decided that we should go that way from now on. He sent the men into the forest, and they came back with 5 big logs of yellow pine. These they shaped with hatchets and hollowed out with fire. Can you imagine, boys and girls? They had to make their own boats right then and there. They had to chop down 5 big trees and then hollow them out with hatchets and fire. This is an incredible amount of perseverance. They didn't give up, did they? They just kept on going and trying new things and doing whatever it took to make sure that they made it all the way to the ocean. Perseverance. It's a big part of the American spirit, or the human spirit, I mean. Not American, human spirit. When the canoes were finished, he made a bargain with the Nez Perce to take care of our horses until the day we came back. Our saddles were buried in a deep hole secretly at night, along with a keg of powder and a sack of rifle balls. Chief Twisted Hair gave us some baskets of camas root flour and dried salmon. With him as a guide, we started off from Camp Canoe in a misty dawn. A crowd on foot and on horses moved along the banks, watching us float down the river. The women, who were dressed in their finest clothes, antelope shirts decorated with small bits of brass cut into various shapes, their nostrils stuck through with pieces of shell as long as my finger, they kept waving at Ben York, who had started to grow tired from all the attention. "The women have made far too much over you," I said. The back of his hands had been rubbed raw by Shoshone and Nez Perce women trying to get the black off of his skin. Because remember, Ben York is a black man. And the Native Americans had never seen a black person before. So they kept rubbing him, trying to see if the color would come off. Well, of course it doesn't, right? "You are spoiled, Ben York," because the women love him. They just think that he's the most amazing looking person that they've ever seen. And so they're giving him lots and lots and lots of positive attention. "You are spoiled, Ben York," I said. "Not enough," he said. "Not close to enough. But when I get back to St. Louis, there will be no more rubbing to see if I'm a white man painted black. I'll be black as a crow at midnight." It was still raining. York had a deerskin flung over his head. He pulled it back and gave me a look. "You're not black like I am," he said, "but you're not white either," he said. "Sort of in between, I'd say. In St. Louis, they won't be rubbing your hands to see if the black comes off, but they'll be curious. They only see a few Indian men and no Indian girls, at least not pretty ones like you. They'll be admiring, saying nice things, but don't let this fool you. You're an Indian and I'm a black man. I'm a slave, and so are you in a way. If a white man marries you, he's called a squaw man, and people look down on him, the same as they'd look down on a white girl who married me." York was watching from under his deerskin cape. He knew, now everyone must have known, that I had a crush on Captain Clark. He was warning me. It was a clear warning, though it was given with a smile, but it struck my heart like a stone-tipped arrow. So boys and girls, do you understand what he's telling her? He's telling her that if she were to divorce Charbonneau and marry Captain Clark would no longer be respected in his community. That's really awful, and it's really sad. And it's really sad because we want things to change, and they have changed, but things need to change more, don't they? Yeah. And that is the end of chapter 22. Let's find out what happens in chapter 23. All right, friends. See you later.